What's up, YouTube? This is your good friend, Fragments of Memory, aka the Armchair Philosopher. Now, a good YouTuber by the name of JasenStl, good buddy of mine, he um he was talking about relationships, as in when to let go. When do you decide to let go? I enjoyed the video so much. I left a few comments, but I wanted to sort of give you a little more of my personal history. Well, I remember this was years ago. I was dating a woman that was about 4 years my senior, and we got along in the relationship. And as all relationships go, they had their share of problems, and the problems continued to surmount as we continued on. But neither one of us said, "Hey, I'm getting out." It's, "Hey, let's try to make things better. Hey, let's try to make things better." Even as we said that, things were getting worse. And I partially blame myself for some of that, and I partially blame her for some of that. So I think blame can go around on both sides. So I don't really throw that in her face. But the one thing I do remember is towards the end of our time together, I noticed she would get busier and busier. She was the type of person that liked to get involved with a lot of projects. So it seemed that her personal projects or her friends took precedence over spending time with me. And I just remember how we always seemed, every time we were together, we were always arguing. And right around this time, a friend of hers and I started befriending one another, and I thought it was no big deal. And I noticed how my girlfriend at the time was dropping subtle hints saying, "You and my friend would be better suited for each other." And she would just throw that around a little bit, and I'd be looking at her like, "Okay, why are you talking like this?" And the more I would try to spend time with my girl, it seemed we would either argue or we would there would always be something coming up like, "Oh, a friend of mine needs help. Oh, this is what's going on. That's why I can't deal with you." Now, most would say she was being unfaithful. I have no proof, but I suspect that would be the truth. Um, and then I find out from her friend that she was telling her friend that if her friend could get me to like her, she could have me. And then I was just like, whoa. And of course, during this time, the more I was, and it seemed that her friend and I were constantly in situations where we were spending time together and just befriending one another. And then I succumbed and cheated, which I shouldn't have done. And even before all of that happened, my girl and I'd always be talking to my girl, and she'd be like, "You're not mature. You're not this. You're not that." And I said, "Well, if I'm not any of those things, why are you still with me?" And then at this point, she would say, "You're being too sensitive or you're being too defensive." And then I asked her, "Do you still want this relationship?" She'd go, "I don't know. Not if it's going to stay the same. I'm not sure." So it was a lot of this up in the air type of stuff. And like a fool, I still held on, just holding on. And of course, she didn't want to end it either. And I found out much later that, according to another person that I know that knew her as well, he was telling me that she was planning to get rid of me, or she was planning to get it to the point where I would break up with her. So she was trying to get me to break up with her. So, and while all of our problems were going on, she was airing out our, and most importantly, my dirty laundry, putting me all on blast. And her friends are even looking at me a little bit more crazy, and I'm wondering why. Come to find out, she spread all type of rumors and half truths and truths and lies about me. So it's like my character is getting assassinated And I was just like, why don't you just go? But then I didn't go either, so it was just a crazy and stressful time. So I totally am with you on this one, Mr. STL. Just that whole idea of why are we with somebody that doesn't seem to want us? And I guess I had all the indications, but in the words of the comedian Chris Rock, your lady can have all. Your lady is like the police. She can have all the evidence in the world. She just wants to get the confession, and that's kind of how it was. I had all the evidence pointing in that direction. Looking back in hindsight, I had all the evidence, but I think I wanted the confession, and I couldn't get the confession out of her. It was like, wow. So when I finally did succumb and become unfaithful, she got what she in essence she got to come off as being righteous and the one that was offended and not the offender. And then even after that, she and I got back together briefly, but then I realized it wasn't working. It was not working. We were back in the same old patterns like that, like everything was back to the way it was. So I just gave up. I said I can't do this anymore. And I just take that as a lesson of if somebody appears to not want you, drop them like a bad habit. Don't wait for the confession because a lot of times you're not going to get it because life is too short because we are dying daily and we are not in the business of how do I say this? You shouldn't let the weaknesses and the shortcomings of the character of someone else trip you up. And don't let your own shortcomings trip you up because we have them. We all have shortcomings. So what I'll say is I want to thank you for this video because just like I was in that situation, I've seen many female acquaintances and friends in some really messed up situations, but they still holding on. The guy could lay up with a bunch of people, like you talked about the one guy who would go to strip clubs and nightclubs and engage in lewd acts with those young women. But yet he had the mother of the kids at home locked in the house by herself with the kids. And she most likely had evidence of that, but she held on. She kept holding on, hoping for something better. I understand that. I've seen that in my own life, and I don't mean with me. I mean with female acquaintances. They complain about their relationship. They complain about this, and I had to say this to a female friend. I said, "I'll be your sounding board. I'll be your shoulder to cry on. I'll be your sympathetic ear, but you chose the man at the end of the day, after all the arguing is done, after all the emotional catharsis is gained. You chose this man. You chose him. And then you have to ask yourself, what is it about you, male or female? What is it about you that's attracting that kind of individual that supposedly is nothing or is about nothing?" And don't get me wrong, I'm not because I believe when a relationship goes bad or when something goes down, it's not one party's fault and the other party is innocent. Guilt is shared on both sides. If a relationship is bad right now, you both made it bad. He didn't make it bad all by himself. You didn't make it bad all by yourself. Don't berate yourself, but don't let yourself off the hook either. So that's really my 2 cents in the whole relationships and knowing when to let go. And not only knowing when to let go, but actually letting go. So I hope that this video has given somebody some insight. And I want to thank you for viewing. Please rate, comment, and show love or hate. Peace.